would like to invite this next speaker, who is going to talk on immigration law, fees and charges, and what you really need to know. We've really exhausted much more of our time, so it's going to make it very brief tonight. I'm begging you to please make it very brief. He's a double qualified solicitor and able to practice in Nigeria and here in the United Kingdom, and he has involved in the practice of law for 2 decades. His area of specialization are on immigration and family law, and he has been supporting many people to achieve their desired objectives both inside and outside the courtroom. Join me to welcome Mr. Ese Adams from Supreme Solicitor?
No, Moorehouse.
Moorehouse Solicitors in London.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for that short intro, Ola, and thank you for having me here. As you stated, my background is that I'm a qualified lawyer in Nigeria. I came here to study, like many other people, decided to stay back. I also am qualified to practice law here. Now, because of my background as an immigrant, it became sort of natural for me to want to do immigration law because I had done law before back in Nigeria. Now, I'm aware of the time, so I'll try and make it as brief as possible. The major thrust of my talk is on immigration and nationality fees. I got this off the internet, and I think anyone can, to be honest. Unfortunately, the internet is not really our friend this evening, I'm told. But if you could just Google it, immigration and nationality fees 2018. They are increased almost as a rule of the thumb now, every year, sometimes twice a year. And the trend you notice is that there has been a dramatic rise in the cost of immigration applications. And, you know, I mean, I tilt towards labor, and at times you can't but involve politics towards it. Definitely, I know that since Theresa May was the Home Office Secretary in 2010 until 2016 when she left, the immigration section of the economy has almost been programmed to be hostile towards those seeking to remain here legitimately. And I think part of, I mean, no one has told me this, but analyzing it, seeing it year after year, practicing immigration law as well, the idea is to discourage, and this is what I feel, to discourage people seeking to stay here from doing that. Because if you look at the settlement application that is now going for a price of £3,250, and you look at the cost of applying for a British passport, there's a wide, which is what, like £70 or thereabouts? There's a wide disparity. And so part of, sorry? 87. Oh, it's 87 now, you see. Thank you. £87, £3,250 for someone who has been here for some time and thinks that he or she should become settled or get indefinite leave to remain. £3,250, you know, how many people could afford that? You see people, a lot of my clients taking out loans, begging, doing all sorts of things just to try and stay here legally. Now, so it's definitely my view that it is part of keeping with the hostile environment of the current government that these immigration fees are increased. Unfortunately, there really is not much you can do about it. These things are a bit political, and as far as I'm concerned, the Home Office no longer has any checks. They pretty much do what they want. And so my advice as an immigrant, and my advice to those of us who don't have settlement yet, is to look for money and get it. The only way you can change these things is by possibly having more people in Parliament, but that's political, and I don't even want to go into that, because some people are in Parliament now. I'm not sure we've got that impact. But let me look at the other issue that I was asked to speak about. So, effective July, I believe this year, there were further changes in the immigration rules. And there are a raft of them, as they always are. But I think probably the ones that affect immigrants more, I'll just zero in on two categories. Of course, we've seen the need in the UK health sector over the past few years, the demand for nurses and doctors from abroad, Nigeria, Ghana, etc. Now, what's been happening, I believe, in the last 2-3 years is that because a lot of them were coming over, there was now sort of what was called a cap on the number of people that could apply. And so you found some people with the right qualifications being refused the visa. Not that they had done anything wrong, it's just that probably the cap for that season has been met. So what we are told in paper is that this cap has been removed. Now the practicality of it is that I'm not sure it has been, but that's what we are told in paper. And so I work with a lot of people, especially nurses from Ghana and Nigeria, and I know that I'm seeing a slight increase, in visas in that category being granted. And so the other part I also want to talk about is that looking at the education sector, more countries have been added in sort of the list that is able to apply here. And some of them don't need that level of documentation that was required before. I just want to talk generally about immigration law, the hostile environment, and where we are today. And this is just a word of advice to everybody. I don't know if we've heard about the case of Kweku Adobolo. It's a very current case now in immigration law. Kweku is a Ghanaian national. He's been here since '91. Was a very smart young man. He got into UBS. He rose quickly, and he was in the hedge fund department. But he, like Nick Leeson, those who have done financial law, hedged some bets and did not do it properly, and he made UBS lose. I believe it was 1-point-something billion pounds, and made their share price drop. Now, Kweku was charged and convicted of fraud. I don't think anybody can fault that. Now, the thing is, he served his sentence now. There's a Home Office policy that says if you are convicted and you are a foreign national, you spend a sentence, or you are convicted for more than 4 years, automatically deportation proceedings kick in. Now, at the moment, Kweku has lost a judicial review into the decision to deport him. So it's still ongoing. He hasn't been deported as we speak, but it may happen. Now, from the point of view of immigration law, the question is, he was here since '91. Why is he not British? And I find this in many places. People take a lot of things for granted. They say, I'll do this tomorrow, but tomorrow the law changes and things become more difficult. If Kweku had naturalized, he would be British, he would have committed a wrong, and he has tried to make amends by even being an ambassador to speak against it. Deportation proceedings won't be, hanging over his head. He will not necessarily be a person of good character, but people won't be talking about removing him to a country that he lived last when he was 11 years. I don't know if you can see. I work for a firm called Moorehouse Solicitors. We pride ourselves on being people who came from thousands of miles back. So we joined forces together. We're about 10 to 15. And we try as much as possible to help our people do what's right to stay in this country. I mean, like I said, people take a lot of things for granted. I've seen people arrested for one thing which seems minor, for maybe evading a bus fare, but then they find themselves back to their country of origin when they weren't ready to leave. If you do the things you should do at the right time, yes, it's a hostile environment, but if you go to the right people, take the right advice, do the things you're advised to do, then you will stay within the ambit of the right, you stay on the right side of the immigration law. And I'll just, again, like to encourage people, it's become more difficult in the past few years. Again, we all must have heard of Windrush earlier in the year. We also know that the Home Office Secretary, the new Secretary, Mr. Sajid, is investigating different issues to do with certain applications to the Home Office, especially the indefinite leave to remain for some applicants. My advice, again, to people is, and again, I see another segment of people, they take action late. If you aren't born here and you came from miles away and you came here on a visa, that visa has an end date. You see people waiting a couple of days or a week before their visa expires before deciding on what to do. Now, the Home Office says that 28 days before that visa, you could put in an application for a renewal or an extension or whatever. But the actual process for that renewal or extension can start months before, can even start years before, if you know what you are doing. So again, if you are not British yet by passport, do the things that you need to do and do them at the right time. Also, I know from experience, immigration matters are usually very confidential. It's not very easy for people to come out and share their experiences. So I know there'll be a question time. I'm free to answer questions, but again, I will hang around if you want a confidential chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like to invite Pastor Tom Ademuwagun.
Thanks very much for inviting me. There's no need for introduction. I will just speak loud. Yeah. I'll try and speak loud without the speaker. Well, in terms of family law, there's a colleague here that will be in a better position to talk about family law. So, I'm a qualified social worker, and I'm also a qualified solicitor. I also qualified in 2 jurisdictions. I qualified both in Nigeria and in the UK. But when I came into the UK, I taught more towards social work. Because when we came in, there's a lot of things that works against you if you are black and ethnic minority. And you need to know that. If you're a professional and if you are lucky to be in an area where the UK is really desperate for professionals, you will be an odd cake. If you're a doctor, you can pass your exams. Pharmacy, nurses, but lawyers, accountants, and some other professions, you will struggle a little bit. And there's certain reason why you will struggle. You will struggle because, to start with, those are areas that they have indigenous that really wants to be. So if you come in, it might not be easy for you to flow in. So I was so lucky that I was able to go into an area of social work because they were desperate for social workers. So I've been so lucky through that area, I got the opportunity. I've been a social worker for 20 odd years. I've been a solicitor for over 10 years. So what I've done is I decided to go more to the social work side. Then I practice my solicitor as a consultant. I'm a registered solicitor with SRA, and I'm a registered social worker with HCPC. I've worked with Ministry of Justice. I've worked with different local authorities. I've worked with CAFCAS, and I know my colleague has seen me as a children's guardian. I did that for 5 years. I've been asked this evening to talk about family law, the realities of children being taken into care. So I think it tends to go more to social work side rather than even talking about family law. But there's something we've done in our community that is really good. The community have been able to use me to speak in so many forums where we talk about children being taken into care. Because of my experience and background as a social worker, I've been able to educate our community about the difficulties they might face if they go against the laws of the land, which ignorance is an excuse. So we have been able to educate our community to some extent. Birmingham, Manchester, Middlesbrough have been to so many. What we do is we do it through the churches, and I think it has really been working. Then we have an organization now we call British Nigeria Safeguarding Consortium, which is in London. So what we do is we looked after ethnic minority children that are about to be taken into care, and we quickly look for people where they can get legal advice and support them through it. So this evening I'll be looking at the realities of children being taken into care. We have 72,600 children in care in England and Wales. 72,600. It's a very high number. 75% of those 72,600 are in foster care. It costs the UK government 1.5 billion to put children in care in 2012-2013. It's a lot of money. Just in foster care, 1.5 billion. It costs the government £1 billion to put children in residential care in this country between 2012 and 2013. It costs the government £33,000 to pay for a child to be in foster care, pay the foster carers, pay for their clothing allowance, and pay for possibly the social worker. So by the time they calculate it, it costs the government £33,000 a year to run a child through care. It costs the government £131,000 a year to run a child through a residential care. It's a lot of money. 77% children that are in care are white British. 77%. So I'll now come to ethnic minority children. We got 22% of ethnic minority children in care from that statistics of 72,600. So out of 72,600, 22% of them are ethnic minority children in England and Wales. Okay? Care proceedings. You need to know this. In this country, the region with the highest number of care proceedings are in our area, in Middlesbrough. 40% rise in care proceedings in Middlesbrough, Sunderland, and Blackpool. Those are deprived areas. Where you see children going into care are areas that are really deprived, where you have antisocial problems. I work with Kafka's 5 years, and my colleague can testify the way care proceedings goes into the courts in Middlesbrough. It's really alarming. And I got to a stage where I ran away myself because it was just too much. The number of work was just too much. People were running away because of the amount of work in terms of taking children into care. I think we've spoken so much. What do we need to do to stop children from coming into care should be the reality. And the reality is Black and ethnic minority families must have an understanding. They do come to me and say, oh, Tom, social worker, this, they're discriminating against me. And one thing I've noticed is, like that brother said, what you said is a reality. There's a lot of cultural issues where we come from. They smack children, they flog children, they beat children, but here is not acceptable. Smacking is not against the law, but physical abuse it is. And there's a thin line between smacking and physical abuse. And most of our families fall victim to physical abuse while beating their children. They call it beat. Here we call it smack. So educating our families is very important. Telling them that, look, where you're coming from, you might hit your children, you might beat your children. I met with a woman this week. She's just come out from Durham prison. For 9 months, she was given 16 months in Newcastle Crown Court. Why? because she was reported by the teacher. She took her shoe in the playground and she said to her child, I will break your head with it. Exactly what mommy was saying there. The threat alone that she made, and the teacher, she went to prison for it. The threat alone that you made, that, oh, I will kill somebody, I will do this, has got people into prison in this country. And this woman was reported by the chief. No, I didn't mean it. No, well, it's too late. Mm-hmm. It's too late. But if that woman has the awareness of how the system, that you can't even make threat language, you can't hit your children, you can't do all that, those cultural issues, it's really impacting our people. So you have a good point. But I know you went to the area of prostitution and all that.
Now we're going to come into that as well.
Yeah, but as a black and ethnic minority person, I have been very lucky, very, very fortunate to have worked in the system. Most of my colleagues, they never had the opportunity. They are qualified, registered solicitor, registered everything. They never got a job with a firm. In fact, when we're writing our exams, they will be telling you in London, in BPP or whatever, they say, well, at the end of the day, you will use this to do immigration law. Those are even our white lecturers. So it shows that there's a discrimination in the system. And we must not shy away from it. So once you're ethnic minority, you are vulnerable. Whether you're born in England or you're born abroad, it doesn't matter. But that you need to know what the law is saying. You need to go with the flow of the law, and you need to have what they call cultural awareness. What is acceptable, because ignorance is not an excuse. So please don't use threat language for people, because you can get arrested and you can get into trouble. So as a roundup, in terms of ethnic minority, black ethnic minority people, the most of them, the four victims, when they remove their children, most of the things that happen is physical abuse, and it's a cultural thing. And the other part is lack of supervision, because most Africans, or ethnic minorities, because of the nature of the job they do, they have to do 2-3 jobs, and some of them do have children. So what they do is they don't have the money to pay for a registered childminder and all those bits. So they leave their children with all sorts of people, or they leave them at home. We did a case recently where 2 children were accommodated in care, long-term care, because their dad left them and went to work overnight. And these are, we're talking about 12-year-old children. One was 10, the other one was about 14-year-old. And it became a very big case in Middlesbrough here. So, but when the dad said, no, they're grown, they should be able to stay alone, and I need to go and work in wherever, I don't know, I don't want to mention the shop because it's not my law. So, but it is not acceptable. It is not. Child protection. I've been doing child protection for 20 years. Do you know in child protection, you can't even leave your child in the car and quickly rush into the shop and quickly come out for 2 minutes, even a minute. You can't do it. If you do that, you are in trouble. It's just child protection. You have to supervise your child always. If you see any mark in your child, you have to ask questions. How did you get this mark? Because if someone else sees the mark, apart from you, and you've not checked it out, and the teacher is doing PE or whatever, how did you get this mark? You say, oh, I don't even know. Okay. They will phone the safeguarding lead. The safeguarding lead will ask, how did you get this mark? The teacher will say, oh, I don't know. It's okay. Then your mother will know. Your father will know. Then problem starts. Phone social workers, how did you get the mark? Child says, I don't know, maybe so there are things that are happening now that you have to be very careful. Children do fall playing, in a bike or whatever. But as a parent, you must know, you must treat them. You must always check their body. Check them. How did you get this mark? Is it true? Phone this teacher. My son came back with a mark. How did it happen? They have incidents form. They will have filled it. They will give it to your daughter, your son to give to you. Ask them, can you fill incident form? Because in 6 months' time, that scar might be there, and there might be something that might come up. You'll be in big trouble. I've seen innocent people, just because they are naive, just because they don't know they can't do the right thing, they've been in big trouble. Finally, please always seek legal advice. Policeman turns up on your door, welcome them in, make them a cup of tea, and say, can you give me 1 minute? Can I phone a solicitor, please? Oh, that's the best thing you can ever do. Welcome them in. Our people is always fighting. They fight, we are very loud. You see, you can see me, I'm shouting and demonstrating. And they start demonstrating, they start fighting the police. The police is just there for a question. Even if you are wrong. Because they even expect it from us that we're going to fight. Don't fight. You're welcome. Can I make a cup of tea? They love cup of tea. And in my office, they'll say, Tom, can you please repeat it how you say cup of tea? I say, cup of tea. We like the way you say it. They love tea.
And biscuits.
And
They like biscuits as well.
yeah, biscuits.
I don't think they're allowed to cook tea, but
No, they're not allowed. But you see what I'm saying is,
the legal aspect.
yeah, the fact that you welcome somebody, no matter how, even if they come in that, we're going to bust the door down, whatever. But the fact that you're polite towards the police officer, and you're polite, they come and say, oh, we have this problem. This is what we've heard about you, or whatever. Okay, have a seat. You talk to them, and they say, well, we would like to arrest you, or whatever. Okay, no problem. But can I phone a solicitor? And it's your right. So when you get that legal advice, even if it's family law or crime or whatever, the solicitor has the professional confidentiality and will tell you that this is what needs to happen. And there's a problem that our people are falling victim into, that I need to tell you also. Lazy solicitors and lazy barristers will always tell you to plead guilty to an offense. Please don't plead guilty to any offense you've not committed. Please don't. Even go before Crown Court, go before anybody, and let the jury, let them convict you. And I'm sure they will not if you're innocent. And if there's miscarriage of justice, there's a procedure for that. But please don't make the barristers' work, the solicitors' work easy for them by pleading guilty. It's coming, I'm getting it, everything. They'll say, oh, don't worry, just get a caution. That caution can destroy your life. Like that brother said. Caution on sexual abuse, you can't practice as a doctor, you can't practice. In fact, all our job these days, they do DBS. As a solicitor, you do DBS. Care worker, you do DBS. Police, we do DBS. Everybody with DBS, you foster carer with DBS. In fact, if I want to take care of a child now, you will DBS me. So, and when they see anything caution sexual, you're gone. So please don't accept caution from the police if you've not done anything wrong. And don't let any barrister talk you through. Don't worry, I will just say to them, they will give you lesser sentence. Ethnic minority people, I don't know what their problem. They'll just say, okay, that is no problem. Because at times, you see, some of people are finding, sorry, I'm talking too much, I'll go sit down now. I'm a pastor too, we talk. But you need to understand this, it's a very serious stuff, because the price they put on you at times make them to say you should plead guilty. Because they can't even look ahead that maybe you might want to be a police, or you might want to be a social worker, or a nurse, or somebody in the community. So they say, don't worry, just plead guilty. Even a security officer, you can't work once you have stuff in your DBS. Tell me what job you want to do. Even if you go and work in engineering these days, once they're following people around there, they will say, where's the DBS? So please, 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 don't plead guilty for anybody if you've not committed anything. Are you getting me, please? Yeah. And please spread it around our community. Tell them, this is what I've done, this is what I've done. Let your barrister, your solicitor defend you through it. If you're convicted, you know you're convicted. But don't let them say, oh, it's accepted guilt, then it will get lesser sentence. It's a big problem. Both family law or criminal law, whatever. And you know these days, please, thank God police is here. Please, these days, when you go through family court, which is a lower level of proof, balance of probability, after all the disclosure you have made there, you don't worry, your children will just go into care and that will end there. If there are serious disclosures that are made there, the police are coming for files from family lawyers now, and they will use it through CBS and give you conviction. So, with due respect, please. So, people look for easy way out to convict people. If you've done wrong, you've done wrong. You face your music. But don't let people just look for easy way of seek legal advice. Go to very experienced solicitors that will help you out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we give him a round of applause again, please? So, the floor is open, but we have a limited time now, so because we still have more speakers, and we have more time for question and answer. So if you've got question to ask anyone, but it has to be brief, please.
So it is to do with legal aid, and we know that I'm actually very pleased that you brought the statistics around Middlesbrough, because we live in the community. We know that a lot of families has been destroyed because of social services involvement, rightly or wrongly, because it could go either way. But my feeling is that Gemma is here, which is a good solicitor here. But I have a recent case where the woman's passport had been taken because there was a suspicion on FGM. God knows whether that was intentional or not. But it took 3 times appearance in court before she can get a legal advice, because she has been going there, over there, over there. The police were quite happy, and she was totally ignored by social services. I'm afraid I don't see anyone who represents them here, to try and get legal advice, because there was a fight between who is going to pay for the legal rep before they can come and represent. Ultimately, the judge said, I don't want to see you unless you have a legal advisor at court. But this is only one. And we know a lot of others. And now I appreciate that you're saying, oh, well, not knowing isn't a defense, which is fine. But to get a bottle of milk from the shop, and then the neighbor reported it, and then it goes disproportionately, and then 6 months later, the family had been destroyed. So there is an element as well. My argument is that there is an element or appreciation of where that individual has come from, how long they have been here, what are the other circumstances. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are bad parents because they just got a bottle of milk from the shop. So I think there is also an element of awareness raising, not only from the parent side or from the ethnic minority, but also the institutions, some of which, I must say, they are very racist institutions.
But do you want me to answer that? I think social services, because I work for social services. I work as a consultant for social services. I think it's an area that they need to improve on in educating ethnic minority families, especially immigrant families, because there's a lot of cultural issues. So I think there's anybody here that's representing a government or whatever, I think they need to take it back. Okay, there's somebody from the council there. Yes, so they need to take it back, because people are doing this job on behalf of the councils. Since I've been in this country, going maybe 15 odd years plus, I've not seen anybody from the council in any church, I don't know about mosques because I don't go to mosque, that have said, I'm from the council's whatever community liaison, and I want to tell people of immigrants, because you always see them in church and mosques, these are the expectations of you in this community. Either as a parent, we don't see it. So people of the council should take it up.
Right. Sorry, can I just follow that up? Again, sorry, I shouldn't really be talking, this is a police meeting. But as part of the Strong Community Middlesbrough programme, we are doing exactly that. In terms of the orientation, we are working with teams around safeguarding issues. The team is relatively new, and they have made links with some of the churches and spoken to some of the pastors, and will come to a session. But I would like to thank you for your presentation, because it's really important that it's not just the professionals who are giving these messages. I think as a community we need to take some responsibility, but we are also delivering some training to safeguard in regards to cultural issues around our communities to safeguarding professionals. And I think, Gemma, it might be useful for you guys to talk about the session that we did with the Regional Refugee Forum around the law and around safeguarding. But again, it's very piecemeal at the moment. In order to get this message embedded, I think it's everybody's responsibility. I absolutely agree. And it's only relatively new that we've started to work both with local communities in regard to some of the issues and around child protection, but also with practitioners.
Just a minute. Let me first give to Alastair.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's right that these issues are raised, but there is a danger that we focus on cases at the extremes, you know, and that people leave here with a feeling that actually that there are scores of children taken off parents who've nipped to the shop to get a pint of milk. In simple terms, the law, what the law says is you cannot physically abuse your child, you cannot sexually abuse your child, and you cannot physically or emotionally neglect your child. Physical neglect is about you are not looking after them physically, you are not providing them food, you are not providing them an appropriate place to sleep, you are not providing with a sort of a cleaning environment, you're not taking them to the doctors when they're clearly ill. You know, that's about physical neglect. Emotional neglect is you are not caring for your child, you are not loving your child, you are not providing your child the support they need from you as a parent, you know, and that is badly affecting them in terms of their physical and mental well-being. You know, it's still a fairly extreme event to have a child taken into care, and there's a lot of people that try and stop that happening along the way and work with families along the way. It's not a click your fingers process, or it's very rarely a click your fingers process, your child's gone and you won't see them again. There's usually quite a lot to go through. So I thought it might be worth just sort of providing a bit of balance from the other side, just to make sure that people don't leave here really, really scared that, you know, that there's a bunch of child catchers out on the streets tonight.
Well, I'm really sorry, but I think it's very important that I respond to Alastair's comment about scaring. It is very, very scary. It is extremely scary.
Come back to tough.
When a social services person turns up into your door and a police officer turns your door, they take their children away, and you have got a house where you had 4 children, and then you spend one night, 1 hour without the children, not knowing where they are. That is very scary. And it is most of the time that it is the case before you get into proper advice and everything else. It could be 2 months. You know, we have got volunteers, we have got community members whose lives the family has split. It is a very scary situation, and I think it's definitely, we must get it right to the absolute with anything, because the impact of it is just too much.
I absolutely accept the impact on families who had very services.
I'm not aware of I'm not aware of council coming to churches too.
This is where we're talking about where, you know, it seems really disproportionate. Those are very rare. Not saying it doesn't happen, it happens, but you know, the cases where it appears really disproportionate and rare, you know, there is usually something behind it that comes back to physical abuse, sexual abuse, physical or emotional abuse.
Perhaps I can just comment in terms of the legal aspect of things. I think, well, first of all, family proceedings are private. So unlike criminal cases where you can go to the Crown Court and sit in the gallery, when it comes to a family case, I think there is a worry and concern about what happens behind closed doors because everything is so private. So you often get, so I as a solicitor will go into court and we'll have the court hearing and I'll come out and I'll explain things to the client, and Tom will have had the same. And their version of what's happened in court is actually very different to what's actually happened. So they'll say, oh, that was really positive, or actually that was really negative. And I'll say, oh, it was actually the opposite, it was really positive or really negative. So sometimes I think people's perceptions of what's actually happened in court and what court orders have been made and what social services are saying, what the judges said, is actually very different to the reality. And I think Tom would probably agree to that. So in relation to the comment about, you know, someone nips to the shop for, you know, a pint of milk and then comes back and then someone takes their children, all I would say, and Gemma and I, to the firm that we work with, PJ Watson, we've done a couple of child protection sessions about basically educating the community. And as part of that session, what I said was, you know, I gave a list of examples of concerns that social workers had in cases that I dealt with, and I'd said, you know, put them in the list of priority as to, you know, what you think would be enough to remove a child. And it was actually a trick question because actually it was all of them. So what might start off as an initial referral of they nip to the shop to get a pint of milk, that's what it starts off with, and that's what everyone in the community might think, well, that's the reason those kids were taken, whereas actually, from my experience, what will actually happen is that was the reason for the initial referral, but then actually the police officer went to the house and there was a squat, and actually there was no milk and there was no food. But actually to the community, do you see what I mean? So I just think it's perhaps people need to have a better understanding. So everyone in the community will be like, well, those kids were taken because we get to the shop, whereas actually there's something else, or a social worker's gone to the house and the police officer's gone to the house and the child's made a disclosure about physical abuse or sexual abuse, at which point the police have said, well, we actually need to use police protection to remove these children. But to everybody else, it will be, I went to the shop. So I think perhaps there needs to be a better understanding of what I often say to people is, look, it might start off with, you know, you nip to the shop for a pint of milk, but actually, and then start, well, now the school have got concerns, and now these people have got concerns. Why can they chuck everything in? Well, the simple answer is because they can. Essentially, you know, criminal justice system is very different to the family justice system. What the family courts are interested in is protecting children. You know, arguably the criminal justice system, whether you talk about restorative justice or collaborative work, there's still an essence of punishing people for doing wrong. You know, in the family justice system, you're there to protect children, and as Tom's already mentioned, the burden of proof is very different. It's on the balance of probability. So a judge has to think, did it happen? Could it have happened? Yeah, probably. Okay, then. Whereas, you know, what Alastair and these guys have to deal with is very, very different in terms of their burden of proof. They have to find something beyond reasonable doubt, you know, so 101%, you know, did that person do it? If not, well, then they get off. Whereas in the family case, I will often have cases where it's been to the Crown Court and been found not guilty of, let's say, physical abuse, because actually the CPS can't meet that criteria, but the findings are made in a family court that actually we think you did do this, and you have children giving evidence. So I think it's just the community to understand that there's a bigger picture, and it's not just someone nipping out for a pint of milk. There are bigger things at play, and I just think, certainly with the work that Gemma and I do, it's just getting that message out there. You know, obviously I represent people who are dealing with social services or in the court system. And I think, Tom would probably agree, I think the judicial system would also welcome some training or something. You know, we're lucky enough to be from ethnic minorities where we can, you know, often empathise with clients, say, actually, I get that because I wasn't allowed to do that when I was little. My mum and dad did that. Lots of people working in our area, you know, are white British and perhaps don't really have an understanding about, you know, physical chastisement and perhaps how you treat girls differently to boys when they're little. I think there's just sometimes just that cultural awareness is lacking. But I certainly think the judiciary in Middlesbrough would welcome something, even if it was from the council, in terms of training about having a better understanding. I think as the demographic around here changes, the courts are dealing with more and more of people from ethnic minorities. But I think, you know, if, you know, someone from the council or, you know, could give us, you know, as lawyers and barristers, guidance, I think that would be helpful as well, because, you know, there's not many ethnic minority solicitors doing that type of work.
So, join me to welcome Mr. Barry Coppinger.
How does this work?
It does.
I'll just speak. Okay. Thanks very much. I'll be very brief. I sat down this afternoon and worked out a few things I was going to say this evening. Unfortunately, I said quite a lot of them, which is great because it means that we won't need to take as long with me. But I'll just mention a few things. And there's a purple leaflet on the chairs there, which sets out my police and crime plan, which covers 54 different areas of activity. Inside it, there's a leaflet from the Victim Care and Advice Service, which is a free and independent service, which is commissioned by myself and the Police and Crime Commissioner for Durham, and is there to provide a whole range of advice and assistance to victims of crime. That can be counselling and emotional support. It can be helping people dealing with the criminal justice system in all its forms, and they also help in terms of claims for compensation as well if people have had goods and property damaged as a result of criminal activity. So that's that. In terms of hate crime, and I'm addressing my comments largely to the issues around hate crime because I think that's why I've been asked to come along. In Cleveland we have a strategic hate crime and incidents group which I chair, which brings together various criminal justice services, the police, the probation, various housing associations, community safety partnerships, working on a multi-agency basis towards seeking to prevent hate crime, seeking to respond collectively to hate crime, seeking to increase the reporting of hate crime, and Alastair referred to that earlier, and also talking about how we can improve support for victims and generally getting a better understanding of hate crime. We have strategic independent advisory groups in the Cleveland area. There's one in each borough, in each of the 4 boroughs, and they bring together members of the public and representatives to discuss issues that affect policing in the area. And we also have a strategic group that's Cleveland-wide that has representatives from all of the 4 independent groups, and we come together again to discuss policing and other community safety issues. Alastair's already mentioned the additional roles that I'm invested in around the refugee asylum seeker coordinator, community cohesion officer. 2 hate crime investigators have done really well, as you've heard. We've also got 3 school liaison officers who do work in primary schools predominantly, and that's important to try and engage with our citizens at the very early stages. The Everyone Matters programme is about training development of our staff, and a lot of that is about encouraging and skilling up people to work better with all the diverse communities in the Cleveland area, and we've done a lot of work with individual groups who've come in and helped with those training programmes. I work with an organisation called Media Cultured, and they've done programme work in 10 schools each year over the last couple of years to do work around enhancing social cohesion, and we're thinking about how we can tackle radicalisation and racism, and that's been work that's been done with teachers in schools. Show Racism the Red Card are an independent charity I've worked with for the last 3 years, and they've done a programme of race hate education, again in primary and secondary schools across Cleveland, and we've done this year, I think, work around 27 different primary schools and 3 secondary schools, working with footballers. Footballers are really significant role models for lots of young people, and fortunately the Middlesbrough Football Club and Hartlepool, the players are very committed to helping us in that, and we've done a lot of work around that. We do work with the Regional Refugee Forum as well, and have brought them into various training events that I've referred to. I also support an organisation called the Halo Project, who do work with vulnerable BME women in the community. The third-party reporting centres we've mentioned already. There are 20 of them across the Cleveland area. In Middlesbrough, we're talking about the community hubs, we're talking about the Cumberland Resource Centre, we're talking about Mine, we're talking Middlesbrough College, Teesside Positive Action, Students' Union, the Orchard, and the Victim Support premises as well. It's important that we make people aware of those locations, and all the details are on the website. We mentioned earlier about hate crime champions. That's really important to encourage and develop those people who can act as hate crime champions, who residents in the community can come along to and speak confidently with and confidentially with, so that they can do work to help develop the response to hate crime. I've already mentioned the training activity. The last thing I'll mention in terms of hate crime, because it's quite a prevalent issue, is within the nighttime economy. Quite often people who work in takeaway premises, people who drive taxis, are often subject to probably the majority of hate crime that comes to the attention of the group. And we're doing work with those businesses, and we've generated some hate crime stickers which have been produced, and we will help them and work with them in terms of response to hate crime. I'll stop there because I'm conscious of time, and I know you've got other speakers.
Thank you very much. So I will start. Your question?
Okay, my question has to do with what Pastor Tom said. My name is Paul Oyani. I'm a parish pastor of the Redeemed Christian Church of God in Middlesbrough here. I'm not aware that council send people to churches to educate people. I'm hearing it for the very first time here today. So I don't know what effort you are doing to to effect that.
Where are you based?
We're in Middlesbrough here, linked up.
Because our wards are here, because we're speaking to the pastors that come to this one.
Okay, so I'm not aware
sorry,
of that.
but we're not. I did say that the work is very much at the moment limited to Newport Ward,
Right.
the Thormsby, and Thorntree and Brambles Farm. At the moment, that's where we're working, but we're more than happy.
We are in, the Methodist Cathedral on the avenue. That's where
I'm
we
happy
meet.
to take your details and come along as well.
So I'm hearing that for the
Yeah.
first time here.
It's not a question, but the contact details. It's not quite a question, but I just wanted to. I'm kind of here with three different hats on actually. My name's Culbia Peacock. I'm here as a Labour Party member, a BME Labour Party member. I'm also here as director of Hemlington Links, which is a youth organisation in Middlesbrough. We actually deliver a youth club here in Newport Hub and across other parts of Middlesbrough. But the other reason I'm talking as well is because I'm actually the chair of the Strategic Independent Advisory Group for Cleveland Police. And I know that the three representatives from the police here have actually mentioned to us that we've got independent advisory groups in the 4 boroughs, as well as the Strategic Independent Advisory Group. I cannot emphasise enough to us, as BME members, how important it is for you actually to be part of that and to really get your voices heard, because if we don't engage with the police, then how are they going to actually know how to be better? Because actually that's what we want. We want them to be better. We want a better service from them, for us, for the whole community. And if we're not going to engage with them, how are they going to know? How do they know if they're doing right or wrong? So please do try and get involved as much as possible. We'll try and get as much information out as we possibly can. We're working on that anyway, aren't we, Phil? So we'll try and do that. And if you want my contact details, I'm happy to give you those as well. I've been there for about a year now, just over, I think, is it, Sarah? Possibly just over. It's a great experience. Seriously, get involved however you possibly can. Come and do their drive-alongs. I don't think they'll let you do the nee no and stuff like that and everything. But you never know. But it really is a fantastic experience, because you're actually having an opportunity to make a difference. But it's not just a difference for you, it's a difference for your community to make it better. And if that's what you want, then get off your backside and do something about it. Don't just sit here and talk about it. I'm really sorry, I'm going to use a really naughty word. Bloody do something about it, please.
Hello everyone, our board. My name is Saeed Ahmed, and I represent TARIF, which is TARIF means Peace Against Racism, Islamophobia and Fascism. It's been going for about 4 years, and I have to be brief, like Ola said. Ola's a good friend of mine, like a brother, and we've been working together on TARIF as well. He's a member of TARIF. My question is absolutely brief, and it's to the board, to be honest, because I have to apologise, I was a bit late coming, and I'm not dressed appropriately as well. So first of all, I'd like to question Mr Barry Coppinger, Police Grant Commissioner. And then second of all, I think Mr Adamus, is it? Tom Adamus, is it? Right, okay, second of all, then obviously the board, if anybody wants to answer it. My question is pretty simple, and it is the abuse of power that police officers commit. Okay, they're not here, I know that. And we are the people that actually question, and hopefully we can put that, stop to that. It happens everywhere. Abuse of, once like a human being becomes powerful a little bit, and obviously, then they go about the harassment and abuse of power and arresting unlawfully and stuff like that. So my question is basically, how can we stop the abuse of power, and is there any future for it? Thank you.
Again, just to say, you have a part to play. Come and get involved in your IAGs, in your Middlesbrough IAG, if that's where this is the area you live in. Come and get involved in those if you want to be part of looking at the abuse of power, as you're calling it, because that's a forum to be part of if that's what you want to do. Scrutiny panels was another one that was mentioned. Get involved in those side of things. There are lots of ways that you can actually get involved in those things, so you can do that. Cleveland Police isn't a closed shop in that respect, so you know they're up for that scrutiny. They've put themselves out there and they have said, come on, question us, we want to get better. So it's up to you to help them do that as well.
Thank you, madam. I think we're going to do that together. If you can give me your number.
No problem, I'll give you my email address, no problem.
If you want me to just say anything about that, I think our community, like what we do, we don't get paid for it. So many work we do in the community, and at times people do ask, you just get yourself involved in so many things. And the reason we're doing it is not because of ourselves, we're doing it because there's a larger community out there that's suffering, that if we don't do something about it, one way or the other, it will affect us ourselves. I don't know whether you try to get what I'm saying. If my people, if I can't educate them, give them that awareness of what's going on, I might think I'm doing very well, but my community is suffering, and I'm suffering. I might pretend I'm a doctor or I'm a solicitor, I live in a posh area in Yam, or I don't know which one you have here. You understand what I mean? And it's a problem in our community. Most everybody sees themselves as business, all these other guys that are causing trouble in the street. They are the community of our community. No, we need to do our by educating our community so that we can be properly represented, so that they can join the police force, so that they can be in the criminal justice system, because they will have perfect, successful people all over just doing their own thing. So we need to come back and reunite ourselves. Because if you speak to some of our colleagues and they say, oh, the community is divided and ruled, people are always fighting each other. So the bigger community, we still not as if we're not even working together. So we, as a BME program, we're having this program, having the privilege of the Crown Police Commissioner here, the police representative. We need to go back and work with some of our communities. Some of the people giving us the bad image, committing the crime, we need to be because education is very important, and once we do that, we know that the system can fight against BME. And the government, the more we push, the more we say to them, we are aware of what you're doing, we know what you're doing, our communities are as bad as that, and they can see, they'll start recruiting our people, and they'll start bringing them in. Because to be honest with you, a white colleague will not feel comfortable saying some terrible things about a black person when I'm sitting here. Even when you want to say, shh, stop it. We still have a black man sitting here. Because I've been given that privilege to sit among, it's a privilege. Some people might say, no, it's your right. No, it's not your right, because it's a privilege because you migrated here. So if you in the building, if you're outside the building, you don't know what's happening inside. So the more we get our people into these buildings, the police, all these places, the criminal justice system, they can be our voice there. We need to go back to our community and get our people into all these places. So the abuse of power, we will reduce it there. Yeah.
I mean, you did mention when somebody, I know police officers let you door, if you welcome in, give them a cup of tea and stuff like that. But well, what I'm missing from yourself is you said you work from the church, and you also mentioned the mosque as well. I mean, we're only human, and I think we'd lifespan about 70 to 100 years perhaps, you know, and the mosque and church has been there for many years, centuries before, and they're going to be there for many centuries afterwards as well. The situation, my question, basically the officers that abuse the power, well, obviously they're just human, they're just like myself, and when they become a little bit powerful, and then, you know, you see, perhaps not, you know, so much in Middlesbrough or England, but if you see, you know, in Asia or Middle East or something like that, there's hell going on, you know. But the thing we need to become more professional and we need to help our community. Once they've been arrested and they've been demoted from the jobs and stuff like that, there's no gateway. But again, the churches and the mosques close the gate for them, and the God's always looking. I mean, I know that, but obviously the role of the police has to be there to open some kind of a gate and for the community as well. I mean, I'm a community man, and I want the gate open for people to actually walk in and seek help, even if they lose a job or something like that. Then they can tackle the police as well as the law system and the counter prosecution.
Sorry, what I'm trying to say is, if you see, one thing I've noticed about abuse of power, if you have your own person representing you within those forces, it reduces the abuse of power. Because, to be honest with you, your white colleague, if you're an Asian blog, and if he wants to, you can say, even professionally, after you've left, they say, what you've just done there, it's not right to that bloke. And they're your colleague, they're your friend, they will say, okay, you're educating them. So if we don't get ourselves in those places, some of those powers that you're talking about, some of those abuse of powers will continue to just be the white working class, white middle class, white blah, blah, blah. We need to get ourselves, our community, into those places. Let our other white colleague be more comfortable with us, and we can hold their hand into our community and say to them, you can see how Tom is shouting. He's not aggressive, but that is how we speak. Are you getting what I'm saying? I'm addressing abuse of power with you because...
Just because...
The police officers can be black, they come from any culture.
Can we just give Alastair opportunity to respond, please?
I think I'd just like to say we take the abuse of power very seriously, and we take the abuse of power that's motivated by discrimination even more seriously. So we do have a police complaint system that is fully independent. So the people that investigate, so if you make a complaint against a police officer, there will be an impartial investigation of that, and that is overseen by a fully independent national body to make sure that that's done. If you're not happy with it, you can complain to the Independent Office for Police Complaints, and they can review what's happened with your complaint. So I would encourage anybody who feels there's been an abuse of power to make an official complaint against the police, so we can have a look at that and make sure that we get rid of those people.
I think it will be good for me to also make some contribution. There's one question I would like to ask, and I'm not sure who is comfortable to going to answer that, because it's cross-section question. In the terms of issue of a delay of justice, because sometimes if a case is being investigated or they gather information together, the police take it to CPS, and CPS decide whether to be prosecuted or not. So going to court, getting there, and on many occasions, maybe like 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, they keep extending the dates based on the fact that police are not ready, or they haven't got evidence, or they lost copy of CCTV, or they keep extending the date of justice. What can somebody that is on that, is it the CP, is it the solicitor that will speak on behalf of that person? Or?
So obviously, I don't deal with criminal law, because my expertise is family. But what I would say is certainly we deal with family law and criminal defence. So we have lots of these cases. Paul Watson, who obviously is the principal of the firm, deals with those types of cases. And I don't know if it's a policy decision, so the police will have to correct me if I'm wrong. But we've certainly seen an increase in people who previously would be arrested by the police and then bailed and then given a bail date, then you answer bail, and then either there's a charging decision or not. The feel now, again, just because I don't do criminal law, is that people are simply interviewed by the police and then it's simply left as under investigation. So they're not subject to bail conditions. There's no date for them to come back, and it's simply under investigation. Now we, as a firm, we can do so much in terms of chasing the police, but we also can't keep files open for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. So we have to take a pragmatic view in progressing someone's case, but you know, it gets to a point where actually it's simply a matter of waiting for the police. Now, I don't know perhaps if the police can answer whether they have any timescales as to investigating matters, but I know I've certainly had 12 months, 18 months where, you know, clients come back to our criminal defence team and say, do you remember 2 years ago when I was interviewed by the police? Oh, now they want me back in. I don't know if there's a different answer from the police in terms of that.
I think there's a number of different aspects. First of all, the law did change. So we used to use police bail quite a lot, and then the law changed to say that actually that it's much more restrictive, the circumstances in which it's appropriate to use that, and the levels of authorisation for continued use of police bail are quite high. Ultimately, we have to go to a magistrate to, you know, beyond certain time periods to keep people on police bail. Now that was a response to some of the celebrity cases because they weren't happy about being kept on bail, but it's probably a misguided policy in that it was the wrong response because it doesn't stop the investigation, you know, and it doesn't necessarily stop the jeopardy of the investigation. It just means you're called released under investigation, not released on police bail. So that's that aspect of it. Investigation should be expeditious, but that basically means we shouldn't be wasting our time. We should be getting on with it. That's the general tenor of what we should be doing. But there's a proportionality question around that. The more serious and the more complex an investigation, the longer it might take. And we are also under a rule to make sure that we look in all reasonable possible places to see whether or not there's any evidence that might actually assist your defence or undermine the prosecution. So we don't just have to collect the evidence, we have to look in places to see if there might be anything that suggests that you're not guilty as well, or actually might help you in your case. And particularly some of the child abuse cases and things like that means looking through huge volumes of records, you know, and that's why it can be extended. Or things like complex fraud cases, they can take enormous amounts of time because of the levels of records that we have to go through. If you've been arrested for stealing a trolley full of sort of goods at Tesco and the CCTV, then, you know, that investigation should be over fairly quickly, and you would have a reasonable right of reply to say through your legal advice, well, actually, you've taken too long on this. Sometimes investigations are delayed because of the people that are being investigated aren't cooperating or go missing when we'd like to speak to them or would like to interview them, so that can be a cause of delay. But we carry quite a heavy caseload of crime, and we've got things in place within Cleveland Police to try and monitor what we've got and try and push forward investigations. We do, in terms of charge, we go to the CPS and ask for advice on whether there's enough, and there are delays. When we go to CPS and say, right, we think we've got enough evidence to charge, can you have a look and determine whether we're going to prosecute? And they have a look, and they're lawyers, we're not lawyers, they have a look and come back to us and say, you need to do more, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other. You know, and that results in delay. Then we go back to CPS. Once people are charged, then there's some fairly strict time limits around how we have to go about things. So even if we charge somebody with murder, then actually, if we charge someone with murder and put them in prison, then we've got some really tight timescales. So despite the complexity, we have to get things ready for court, you know, within, you know, potentially sort of a 3-month time frame, you know, and the more serious an offence is, the more resources we will put into it. So there are probably today numerous reasons for delay, but the general principle is that we should be investigating crime as quickly as we can, but depending on the type of investigation, the complexity and the seriousness, all impacts on how long that might take.
For instance, if you say like stalking or harassment, if you did it town city center, can that take longer time like that?
I mean, it would depend on the... So if it was stalking followed by a violent assault and it required us to look at all the CCTV, every hour of CCTV in Middlesbrough Town Centre, you know, for the last week, that would take a bit of time. If it was, you know, an incident, you know, one incident or two incidents where we knew the time and we knew the place, you know, and we could go straight and get the right camera and have a look at it, then that might take a couple of hours. So it's a question of degree, and you know, we don't make the evidence. You know, we go with what evidence there is. If the evidence is nice and easy to collect because we've got clear time frames, we've got clear places, we've got clear people that we need to speak to, then it's quicker for us to do that. If we have to go and use our investigation techniques to find out who the witnesses are, you know, or to convince, you know, reluctant witnesses and find out what time it took place and find out where it took place and find out what CCTV and all of these things, then, you know, find out who the suspect is, then that's all going to take a bit longer.
Do we have anyone to ask for that question? Any contribution? Thank you very much. I think we could all say now there's no more question, and I believe the importance of bringing our key people here is to kind of build that relationship, to increase the trust between the BME community and the policing and the CPS, the solicitors firms, and I believe all of us must have picked up one or two things to learn, and like how to be more careful with the way we conduct ourselves in the community, and also we've got advice from all our solicitors. I wish I got something from the manager from PJ Watson, just to say hello to us. Gemma, please.
Hello, Ola. I didn't plan to say anything, but I mean, most of what I would say, you've probably already heard from Pam. Yes, we did do work with the Regional Refugee Forum. We've done work with Shada Sangawara as well, talking to people about employment and how to get into employment, how to do work experience. And the Regional Refugee Project was mainly around some of the things that we've talked about tonight with regard to child protection and cultural differences, educating key community people on things that they don't know. And they said, you know, we wouldn't have known all of those threshold criteria mean that, you know, a child can be taken into care. If we don't do that kind of work, and the work was unpaid, we did it voluntarily, nobody else necessarily does. And I know that, you know, we're talking about the council having projects in place now. They didn't at the time that we did the work 2-3 years ago. And we still like to come to events like this to make sure that we do maintain links with the BME community. We think it's important. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much. For the purpose of everyone that comes here, if you have any question and any query, you can email us bmeclp.middlesbrough@gmail.com. Our event for October is going to talk about employment and discrimination in the working place. So that's our October event. Once we put everything in order, once we got the key speakers, we will get you back to you. And those of you that you've signed your attendance, if you put your email there, we can email you. And we've got feedback form. If you have time, you could please fill the feedback form. If there's anything we need to add, just let us know. Just the last note.
Very quick one.
Yes,
and
please.
He's going to hate me for saying this. Mr Coppinger is very dedicated. It's actually his birthday today. Could we just say very quick happy birthday to him? Happy birthday! That's dedication for you.
Yes. That is. That shows how committed he is, because most of us, if you are celebrating birthday, we know where we'll be by now. We really say thank you very much for honoring us for this event. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening.
And our regards to your family for releasing you to be here with us.
Alastair, can I sing him a song?
Yeah, if you got a
Can I
song.
sing you a song? It's a happy birthday song. Can I sing?
Yeah.
Should we start on Tuesday?
Only for you.
Let's honor, let's stand up, If you
Can
don't mind,
everybody join
let's
with
stand
me?
up.
Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear buddy. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip, hooray, hip hip, hooray, hip hip, hooray. He's a jolly good fellow, he's a jolly good
Once
fellow.
again, thank you
He's
very
a
much
good fellow, and we all love him.